Hello and welcome to my emblem ring tier list. In this video I'm going to be going over which emblem rings I think are the best and why, and where they place in an overall tier list. There's also going to be spoilers, so you've been warned before I scroll down and start revealing specific images. So if you don't care about spoilers, then let's jump in. Alright, I'm going to get rid of this F tier first of all. We do not need that. Honestly, I don't even think I need a D tier. Alright, there we go. That's easier. Okay, now there's characters and emblem rings in here, so we're just going to focus on the emblem rings. For the DLC ones, I don't have the DLC. I could buy the DLC. I'm going to delay doing that because I'm assuming most people aren't going to have the DLC. I'm not sure what percentage of the population of this game has the DLC. I'm aware of how good the Phase 1 DLC ones are. Phase 2, I'm not sure about. They seem like they're good, though. It seems to be the case that a lot of the DLC emblem rings are pretty strong. So I guess if you want to run them and buy the DLC, go for it. But personally, I either will do it very late after I beat the game like 5 times on Maddening, or, never get it at all. So we'll see. I might eventually get it. I don't know. I could always just restrict myself, don't use them during like certain chapters to make the game harder. Okay. So Alir as an emblem ring, I would say it's S tier because it allows you to. It's one of the components to 2-rounding the final mission on Maddening mode, which is pretty crazy. Aside from that, like for normal use, probably it's just A tier, but it's okay, like in general. But the fact that you can use it for speed clears, or speed, that's a Guild Wars term, for for low turn counts. It's a completely different thing. Kind of suggests that it's like huge potential, and huge potential usually allows for big plays. Outside of that, it's a free thing. You can use it when you want to, when it makes sense to. It's just extra mechanics. Honestly, I don't think that it's needed in the game at all. I feel like there's already enough emblem rings, but I guess they wanted to have some new cool extra super thing you can do, and it's pretty strong. Okay, Byleth, I would say is S tier. Just for the dance. Just the dance makes it S tier because it enables so much crazy nonsense. But outside of the dance, you have AoE instructing depending on what your class type is. So if you're like a mage or if you're like a mystic, you can instruct other mages with magic, and that increases their magic damage, which is nice. For warriors and physical units, you can do strength. For covert, I think it's dex. You have all these different instructs that you can use. But most importantly, you have certain weapons on certain classes. So Mystical gets Thyrsus, and Thyrsus can be a siege weapon. So it can convert a unit into a siege weapon. And then if you dance that unit, you can kill 1 to 2 enemies a turn at a very safe distance, also while using Canter. And in this game, that's huge upside and really strong. So even if you run Byleth on a Mystic unit, you can still special dance as needed. Goddess dance. And you can also pick things off as a siege weapon, and both of those use cases are huge, and I would say makes it S tier. Celica. I always get them confused for some reason. Celica, the Warp Ragnarok lady, I would say she's B tier. She increases your magic damage, which is kind of neat, and she has Warp Ragnarok, which is kind of good. But outside of that, it's not like one of these game-breaking abilities where when you pop her engage, you're about to like beat the map. Because some of these engages, when you pop them, you basically are about to beat the map. Hers is not one of them. So, all right. So I'm gonna skip the DLC guys because I haven't personally used them. There is one DLC character I'll rate. These are probably around A tier, just based on what I've heard and what I've read about their abilities. Just evaluating them, I'd probably put them in A, but I'll put them in last if I'm gonna be placing them. All right, Corin, I would say she's A tier. So you can do the fog thing on coverts, get your high avoid. You can do that every turn. You can delay enemies with ice. You can delay enemies with fire. You can burn enemies with fire. You can dance double ice, dance double fire to drastically reduce enemy movement. You can freeze a bunch of enemies. You can debuff things. Honestly, there's almost a case to be made that she's S tier. I kind of feel like she is S tier. Because even just when she's equipped and you just hit a boss and it reduces its speed so that your units can double that boss, that's huge value. just that is huge value. That like trivializes almost every single boss fight. So there's that. There's the freezing. If she's popped, the other thing, actually, honestly, I think she's S tier. The other thing with her is when she's popped, if you hit an enemy when she's engaged, it will still, if there's like 3 enemies that are next to each other and you hit one in the middle, it'll freeze all 3 of them. Like not even using her torrential whatever tidal wave ability or torrential surge, I think that's what it's called. Like just hitting an enemy that's grouped up can freeze enemies, and that's big value. Debuffing, big value. The creation of fire, water, ice tiles, fog tiles, big value. It lends itself to breaking the game. So Erica and Ephraim, something like that. The twins, I would say they're A tier. You can switch between their modes. One mode, so Erica's mode, you take 3 less damage, and then you also deal 20% more physical damage based on the enemy's defense, which is nice. So it scales your physical damage, makes you tanky, and then Ephraim's mode makes you deal 3 more damage, which I believe is armor ignoring. So if you were to hit 0, you'd just hit a 3. So it pushes you up, so it takes non-zero damage and pushes it to 3. So there's that. And you also heal for, I think, 10% of the damage you deal. So both modes are good. You can switch and attack as needed. And Twin Strike hits really hard in most use cases and can one-round most enemies. So pretty solid. There's really no downside. And then they have decent stats, I believe. I think you get like magic and something else, maybe speed or dex. Maybe it's like magic and dex. It's at least, I know magic's one of them. But maybe it's better on mages than physical. But you arguably could run it on physical. Ike, I would say, is A tier. You get good tanking. His AoE attack is nice. In some use cases, putting him on like a spear class like Griffin Knight, if it's on spears, allows it to pull a hammer out and now have huge anti-armor. So if it pops and then just whacks a dude, it can give that unit some good armor penetration, which is nice to have. Outside of that, the tanking is nice. It gives you plus strength. That's useful. Leif, I think, is C tier. Adaptable isn't really that useful. The build increase he gives you is nice, but you only really need it on certain classes. And by equipping him, you're basically guaranteeing that you're not going to increase your magic, strength, or speed from your emblem ring, which is huge because most emblem rings increase one of those, and some even increase like 2 of those. So he doesn't. The only thing he really does is allows you to wield heavier weapons, and that's like his main thing. So outside of that, quad strike is okay. Sometimes it one-rounds enemies. You need to have really high stats to do so, as far as I can tell. And on a lot of units, his quad strike deals very low damage. So make of that what you will. But I mean, arguably, he seems to be the type of thing that goes on an axe unit. So maybe he's better on axe units. I've tried running some axe units. I feel like their speed is too low and they don't deal enough damage. Personally, but maybe he's like a B on axes. But aside from on swords and lance units, I don't think he's very good. I actually am running him on an axe unit right now, and it's not working out very well. She's not dealing that much damage. All right, Lucina, S tier, probably the best one in the game, I think. Bond shield, completely broken. It allows you to tank things. If you have a flyer and you have a bunch of flyers, it makes all of your flyers have 100% success rate for bond shield. And if they're fast enough, they will not get doubled. If they don't get doubled, they're immortal. And they can survive getting attacked 30 times in a row. So, and I've specifically used this strategy on a bunch of maps, and it's absolutely broken. Outside of that, on a Chi Adept, it also does this. 100% success rate to any unit type on Chi Adept. And then on Dragon, it's 90%, but you want it to get to 100 so that you can tank, guaranteed. But yeah, pretty crazy, pretty broken. All for One is decent. She also gives you, I think, Dex and Speed. I think she might give you Strength too. I can't remember exactly which stats she gives you, but she gives you useful stats. I know she gives you Dex. But she also gives you either Speed or Strength or something like that, but it might just be Dex and Speed. Oh, she definitely gives you Speed. Yeah, she gives you Speed, which is useful. Lynn, I would say is S tier as well. There's so many crazy things you can do with Lynn that are stupid. There, you can snipe enemies. You can pull groups of enemies if they're sitting there and they aggro. That's not super common in this game because most enemies don't aggro when attacked for some reason. And I don't know why that is. But sometimes they'll just sit there. Other times they'll aggro. She has the clones. The clones the clones can be a lifesaver. They can body block enemies. Enemies prioritize them because they can kill them in a single hit. The clones can dodge. The clones can deal counterattack damage and crit and have killed things at times. And when the unit that created them attacks, they get chain attacks from anywhere on the map. So you can create clones on the first turn you use Lynn, and then get warped somewhere else and then attack something, and then you get 4 chain attacks. But the other thing too is if all of your units are at full health and there's like 5 enemies near you, and if 2 of those enemies attacked, like focused one of your units and killed it, and there's 4 clones, like clockwork, they will ignore you and try to one round the clones. And if you do the math, if all 5 enemies attack a clone, there will be 1 enemy free, assuming all 4 clones are killed. And then if you calculated your damage right, and your units can tank a single enemy, now you're fine. So they can body block, they can waste enemy turns, they can dodge, they can deal damage. And that's not even the best part of her. Alacrity lets you 1-round worms. If your speed is high enough, higher than the enemies, by +5 higher for alacrity plus, you get both of your attacks in before they counterattack. And then you add in Lucina to this, and she gets Speed Taker. She gets up to +10 speed per kill. +2 speed per kill for a total of +10. So you can get up to +10 per mission, and then it goes away at the end of the mission, but it stays there. So you can get high speed, kill a bunch of things, and it's pretty insane. Yeah, she's S tier, definitely. Marth, I would just say he's A tier. Lodestar Rush is good. The stats are decent. She also gives speed too as a stat, and it scales with 20 bond up to like +5 or so, like 4 to 5 speed or something crazy. Marth is pretty crazy. Or is that pretty crazy? He's just decent. Lodestar Rush can one round most things. Some of his passives are good. There's not really too much that that stands out about him. He's decent. He's strong. I would say he's A tier though. He's definitely better than her because he has more value when not in use. Excuse me. Makaya, S tier. Enables warp strats, increases staff range, just pretty crazy. Roy, I would say he's B. The level up boost is nice. Holdout is good. The flame attack is decent. It's pretty solid. Sigurd, I would say A tier, like high A tier. The getting Canter and Momentum Plus is really good. Gives him mobility. Override can be strong when used optimally. You can't override all the time though, and when you do, it's not always 3+ enemies. Sometimes you can only override like 2 things. But it allows you to deal area damage when you line enemies up. And if you line enemies up in a huge line, it can be absolutely insane, but it's kind of hard to set up those opportunities. All right, so let's do the DLC. So Tiki I already know is S tier. The dragon thing, lets anyone kill things. The plus 15% growths, it's like on all your stats, that's broken. So that's S tier. These guys, I would probably put them in A, based on what I know about them. They seem like A tier material, maybe A or B. I don't know about S. I don't know that they're that good, but they seem decent. So this is the list for now. Then there's also these new guys. I don't even know anything about them. They just shipped like yesterday, so don't really have an opinion on them. If I were to place them generically, I'd probably put them in B or A. It's just like guessing, but here's my list for now. This might change depending on how the meta game develops, but yeah, definitely like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Feel free to agree or disagree in the comments. Let me know why. If you make a solid argument, you can change my mind. So, I'm open-minded on these things. And peace.